There are 4,218 PS2 games, and I've got to beat every one of them. I've got to own the game because I'm playing on the original hardware, but I've beefed it up using a RetroTink 5X, some component cables, and more to come soon. Can I do this before I die of old age? I hope so. Espgaluda is a bullet hell style ship shooter made by Cave and released in 2003 on an arcade system. Less than a year later, it was converted to the PlayStation 2 by Arica, including some added modes, characters, and made a little bit more accessible. The PS2 port was reviewed favorably by many, the biggest complaint being the short length. Is there any hope to beat such a difficult genre? Aw, yeah. After finishing Espgaluda, the most interesting thing about it is its price point. It was $99 at my local shop. I don't even know how they had it, but online it runs for about $99 to $130 for a Japanese exclusive game, which is pretty high in cost, I think, especially because of how short this game really is. It's a bullet hell style game, and it was adapted from an arcade machine. And of course, arcade machines are meant to eat your quarters. Well, in the PS2 version, they don't want you to feel bad about dying constantly, so instead of just letting you die and making you start over, you can continuously continue. The real length of the game came from making you spend quarters until you got good enough to finally beat it on an arcade machine, if you were ever able to play a game this difficult and beat it on an arcade machine. Did you have enough quarters? I sure as hell didn't. I want to say a quick thank you to the YouTube and Patreon members. Thank you so much because it makes games like these possible. You may be asking, how was I able to play this game? Well, I region broke my PS2. It wasn't really that difficult, and in fact, I had all of the stuff to do it at my house already. So if you look online, you can find a way to do it yourself, as long as you have an empty memory card, a DVD burner, a DVD-R that is empty, and a thumb drive that fits your PS2, or at least that your PS2 recognizes. Some may not be recognized. If you can do that, you can spend a couple hours getting the programs and stuff around to do this, which means I didn't have to spend any money on any other PS2s, and now anytime I want, I can play any game in any region. And for the very first game, I wondered, was it worth it? Because this game is so short. Like I said, it took me 35 minutes total to beat it. And it's a pretty simple game. You have bullets filling the screen from multiple enemies from all directions. You pick one of two characters that both have different shot types. When you fire your guns on the front of your character or whatever they're firing, you get to fire two different types of weapons. So you're pretty much just picking that. I believe each character does come with a special ability, although I'm not really sure what that special ability is. Once I pick my character, it gives me these little tutorials on how to play the game, and a lot of them are obviously in Japanese, so I'm using a translator to kind of translate things as I go along so that I can understand what I'm looking at. And here are the pretty simple rules of this game. Holding down X is auto-fire. It will auto-fire your guns. As you move around the screen, you're trying to destroy ships to stop them from firing multiple bullets at you. The whole time, you're dodging those bullets. While you're doing this, you can press the circle button, and you will fire a special gun that blocks shots from hitting you, and will also destroy shots and will do a lot of damage to big enemies, say a boss. Oftentimes I noticed it going off automatically for me to save my life, probably just a get out of jail free card, but probably the most helpful ability is the slow down time button, which is triangle. When you press it, the gem counter in the top left of the screen, which actually does matter as you kill enemies, you pick up gems, that will slowly drain, and it will also slow down enemies and bullets on the screen by about half, so now you have an easier time dodging these bullets because they're moving at half speed. But you've got to be careful, because if you let that little ability stay on too long, if you drain all of the gems before you turn it off, it will actually speed every bullet up by double speed or something close, maybe 1.5 times the actual speed. You never want it to end automatically. You want to end it manually. Otherwise, you're going to have to fight like double speed bullets. While you have this bullet time ability active, you can actually press the circle button to also fire that big beam. However, this time it's modified damage-wise by how long that bullet time ability has been active. So if you have it active for as long as you possibly can, you'll do tons of extra damage and block lots of shots, as that's what it does, is it destroys bullets. And it's pretty helpful if I actually used it. I had a hard time using it myself because I was so focused on the bullets. I'm not good at this game. But here's your abilities. You have bullet time, you have a big laser, and you have auto fire. You use these three things to destroy everyone on screen and then eventually get to a boss. During this time, you can pick up small power-ups, although there's only about about 4 to 5 maximum pickups of power-ups before you are at your maximum damage. And, you know, your bullets get wider, you shoot further out. I guess it's, helpful, I suppose, but every time you die in this game, you drop the power-ups and you can get them back. So once you get them once in a stage, that's it. You pretty much have them the whole time. And each stage is vertical. You go straight up and you can see on the right side of the screen a small map telling you how far you've gotten up the screen. Once you reach the top, that's the boss. You fight the boss, the map is over. And there are only like 3 maps in this game. In all seriousness, that is it. This game is 35 minutes of 3 different screens with different bosses and just tons of death because there's so many bullets on screen and dodging them is pretty difficult. I don't know if the PS2 version has any caveats that the arcade system doesn't. Maybe it's harder to control the character with the D-pad or the analog stick, which I felt like I couldn't quite move out of the way of the bullets when I wanted to, although I'm not good at these games, so I'm not going to do as well as people who do like these games or who are good at them, which is fine. It's weird that it's so absolutely short. I can understand though, it is an arcade game, it's a port, so it's much more for the enthusiast rather than the casual gamer like myself. I probably wouldn't want to pick this up unless I was really dedicated to maybe doing some challenges, maybe checking out all of the different modes that come along with the game, as there are several different modes that probably make it feel more like an arcade machine rather than this PS2 version, which you can just keep hitting X to continue whenever you die. There are a couple extra characters, so you can still try that out, but like I said, it's much more for the enthusiast than anyone. It was harder, of course it was, and the abilities are fun to use, I suppose. The art is really nice, the character designs are great, the last boss was fantastic looking, the music's okay, it's upbeat, you know, keeps things moving, but most of the time you're really focused on the bullets, so I didn't hear the music or even pay attention to much of what any enemy looked like, except for the last boss. Going back through the video I can see it, but it was hard because you're so focused. The screen is full. At the beginning of the instruction manual, we do get a very short synopsis of what seems to be a grand story, but it is not told in pretty much any aspects of this game while you're playing it, although except in between each of the stages, you get this brief section of extremely broken English that I'm not sure what it's talking about most of the time, but apparently these nations are in a struggle for alchemy that has been introduced to the world, and they're pretty much fighting for control, I think is like the very basics of it. It's hard to tell. There's so little of it. I can understand why it wouldn't have that much of a story, but there is a second game. There's even like maybe a special collection with both of the games, a special version. I think there's one that comes with like a watch. I'm not sure if it's this game that comes with a watch, but there's some good special. So this game is like popular. People liked it. It got decent scores and was said to be one of the best on the system for bullet hell style games. So it means something, but for me, it's an interesting game. I just didn't find it that fun. It was great to experience, and you might like it if you like these types of games. However, that's it. I won't keep this video any longer. Let's be done. That means game number 52 was beaten. I got to credits, and it was fine, I suppose. I'll give it a C. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It could be good for the enthusiast, but for me, it just wasn't that interesting, and it was so short. I would say it would be worth it if it was about $5 and you had the time and the money to do it, but it's not. It's like $100 to play this game. It's absolutely not worth it unless you are willing to sit down, maybe challenge yourself, try the different modes, and you are really gonna like a bullet hell game. I'm very excited to be playing more Japanese games as well as other region games too. I do have several more on the way, and I'm actually in the middle, as I say this, of playing Rosa Maiden Dual Waltzer, which is, a fun graphic novel to play. But we're gonna be playing more of these. We've got a couple more coming. We've got a lot of good games coming up. Thank you everyone who has stayed this long to watch. I want to thank everyone on the YouTube membership and the Patreon membership. On the YouTube side, we have Peplo and Delaney, and on the Patreon side, we have Johnny Baghead, Jay Hank, Lucas Nicholas, James Fan, Hypervertus, Val, T-Roy, and Delaney. Thank you everyone so much. I really appreciate it, and there's going to be so many more games to come. I'm excited. See you next time.